Today we are very fortunate and blessed indeed to have with us Christopher Kip Forbes, who has startled the art world in ways we're going to get into. And we want to talk about what we're billing this as ebullient conversation about life, money, and the joy of more. That's our official title. And I want to tell Kip to the beginning, I've been basically, you've been dominating my life for the last couple or 3 weeks. My book about you and auctioneering, when it was almost finished. Sounds poor, it sounds reproach, is not just the minimal compliments I've given you. You should feel, there should be ringing in your ears or something.
The microphone is getting tight. My head is swelling so much.
Good. Kip Forbes and I have crisscrossed in so many ways over the years. It's quite extraordinary. I was trying to write down the other day all the ways in which we crisscrossed. I know that one of your relations was Governor Forbes of the Philippines. Did you know that?
From the same clan, but his family took an earlier boat to America before going to the Philippines.
But still, he must have been a cousin of yours. I mean, there are these Forbes legacies all over the place. Anyway, I was painted. This is the kind of loop I was driving where I was painted by Peter Pizzotti, who painted Governor Forbes. I was painted as Peter's last commission. Governor Forbes was one of his first commissions. It's that kind of thing that makes you wonder. Years ago, when I first met Kip, it was at the Copley Plaza Hotel in Boston, where there was some kind of a Victorian meeting going on. And even in those days, you will know the Greek Roman figure Maecenas, who was a lavish patronage of the arts. That was Kip. When he was virtually a boy genius, he was out there helping people publish, and I was such a person. Now, neither of us can remember what I published. He probably has copies in his garage, and if I had a garage, I'd have a copy too. Right from the beginning, Kip Forbes was enabling talent, and I happened to be lucky along one evening, and I was that talent. And he was what he always is, charming, knowledgeable, self-effacing, and working on one deal after another, and we love him for his ability to juggle plates in the air. And so he juggled plates that some of the plates that I'm juggling were his. Just a couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the China service, 55 pieces of Sev, with a color that neither Kip or I had ever seen before. I want to know someday whether you've eaten lunch off of them. They're glorious, and they're now in London being packed for me to come over here. We want to talk about, we'll start off by saying, what possessed you? And you have to have a corrupt mind like mine. In the marvelous essay that you published in the front of your catalogs for the March 5th and 6th, 2016 auctions, you described being on your father's Highlander 3 yacht recently commissioned when you were about 16 years old and you were in Saint-Tropez. Now, most boys, when I read that, are not looking for pictures by Flandin, Napoleon the Third, when they're at Tropez. What were you thinking of in those days? Did you have a vision? Did you know you were going to become a figure, or were you just keen on Saint-Tropez antique stores? How did it work?
I had no choice in the itinerary. My father told us where we were going and what we were doing, but I was surprised to encounter Napoleon the Third there, and delighted that he joined us on board the boat.
I got to ask you this question. Napoleon the Third has been such an underrated figure. There's a book here that I read in graduate school, and I might have told you this story. Theodore Zeldin, who wrote the biography of Olivier, the liberal prime minister just before the fall of the empire, once said to me about his class in French history. He said, "Jeffrey, you represent a puzzle to me. You know the most French history of anyone in the class, but your French is non-existent." He said, "What shall I do?" And he said, "Have you got any idea, Professor Zeldin, how we can..."
And what did he do?
He said, "Well, I'm over here from Oxford, working on the Oxford history of France. I'm at Harvard for just a year. I don't know any people. I don't know any girls. You give a lot of parties. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll help you along if you will help me along." Done. And so that's how my first encounter with the Second Empire was Theodore Zeldin and his need to have dates. What really was it about Napoleon the Third? initially, he's not a very appealing person. One of the anecdotes that comes to me at him is at the Louvre and Fontainebleau and what have you, he was expected to act out the role of imperial stud. To be an emperor was to be the head of the stud farm. And he kind of came to the end of his life to just finding it completely detestable what he had to do with the ladies. And he didn't want to do it. He was tired, he was sick, he had the stone. Yet he went through this, and it was such a pathetic vignette about here was an emperor who was just so miserably unhappy. And then, of course, when the French armies were defeated at Sedan, Napoleon the Third spent the day trying like the dickens to get himself shot. Well, his hateful wife. And, you know, try as you might, the Empress Eugenie is not a likable person. Do you have any comments about that?
I think you're being unkind to the Empress and overstating the Emperor's appetites.
Oh, good. Where else, friends and neighbors, can you get into an argument about things of events of 1870 on the screen live in living color? Okay, so what was it then? Because after I read his shenanigans and whatever, and his choice, like he could never shake off the relatives.
As he said to one of his cousins when his cousin said he had nothing of the Emperor, the great Napoleon, about him, Napoleon the Third looked at his cousin and said, "Yes, I have his family."
That's true.
And he certainly, they were a burden for the first one, and they were a burden for the second Napoleon. But they both coped admirably with their families.
Well, the families coped adequately with them. I mean, you remember the famous anecdote where Napoleon answered his sister or Louis or whatever, and saying that he acted like he had been dispossessed by their father, the king. The Bonaparte family had a remarkable ability to forget where they came from. I mean, they at one point were hanging laundry in the south of France, where Desiree, who later became Queen of Sweden in one of those unlikely things of the period, her father was a silk merchant, and the Bonapartes cleaned their linen for them. These people had an amazing ability to forget their roots, don't you think? Didn't you think hubris is just one of their innumerable traits?
It's amazing how we can all think highly of ourselves no matter what. I think the Bonapartes were like many self-made people. They were in awe of their creator.
They were in awe of themselves.
Absolutely.
I've got to tell the story. There's no other place to tell some of these stories, everyone. I mean, you do realize that Kip and I are fanatics. You are listening to two obsessed fanatics who spent their summer vacations, their money that they got from mowing the grass, in my case, to buy stuff that people couldn't figure out why. But for example, Pauline. Pauline's my very favorite. Do you like Pauline? Let's get this out of the way.
She made an admirable figure for Canova to sculpt.
She did indeed. And she used to use one of her ladies-in-waiting. She used to plant her cold feet on the woman's bosoms and warm up her feet, but with her lady-in-waiting, who would be out back on the floor, stripped to the waist, and talking to the guests in the salon at the same time. I mean, it's so audacious you could hardly even imagine it.
I can't imagine any current politicians indulging in such an extravagance.
Oh, except what was that French politician who was involved with the maid in New York? The one who was going to go up for president now.
I don't think he was keeping his feet warm.
No, he wasn't. Okay, so here you are. Were you looking for something to do, or did this, or just the miraculous coming together? Because you have personally rescued an emperor of France, and I am billing you as the White Knight who came in on your horse and saved the man's reputation, which, after all, is the only thing we're worth having. And after you're dead, is the reputation. How did you grow, and did you hate your subject at the end? Winston Churchill said, at the beginning you love your subject, at the middle you're losing interest, and by the end you're strangling it. Did you go through those stages? Did you ever strangle it, or was it all positive?
No, I remain totally enamored of Napoleon the Third, and my children are now, my daughter's now even more enamored because he was worth more than she anticipated.
Listen, you brought up, just remember you brought it up. I sat and in awe. And I have participated in all the great auctions, the Baden-Baden auction of the Grand Duke of Baden, who also happens to be a Bonaparte descendant of his cousin Stephanie a long time ago. But I sat there day after day saying, my God, that Forbes, he is a cleverkins. The prices were astronomical. If there were any bargains, I didn't see them. I broke my cardinal rule of don't bid above the low estimate. I broke it 3 times to acquire things. I got this marvelous profile of Napoleon the Third. And by the way, it's very hard to do Napoleon the Third in marbles because he looked like such a weasel with his is it called an imperial?
It is.
I mean, he doesn't look healthy. He looks like, well, a weasel. But this particular marble profile made him look positively serene and imperial and authoritative. I had to get it. I paid you more than I should have, but I couldn't help myself. And that's the genius of Kip Forbes, knowing that that's going to happen. He plants these things, so you go off your rocker, right?
I'm sorry you just didn't go off your rocker more often.
I know. I had to possibly hold my hand back. Whereas you have the benefit of everything being about Napoleon the Third and Environ, I collect many different dynasties. I don't think there's a dynasty in Europe now that I haven't collected something of some importance. And so you're saving an emperor, I'm saving the whole system, including him. So, and here's a strange thing. The very first auction that I went to was in Montreal, and I browbeat a friend of mine to drive fast because I thought, and there was a picture in this it was the Lant portrait which you picked up at Saint-Tropez. There it was in Montreal. Now, it couldn't have been the same piece, could it? I mean, when you acquired that Lant, did you keep that the rest of your born days?
I did indeed, and Mr. Flandrin, like many artists before him, knew that if you painted a popular subject, you kept on painting it. I mean, how many times did Gilbert Stuart churn out George Washington? So Mr. Flandrin was no exception to the rule.
Well, I know I traveled. I thought that might have been your Flandrin, but then as I read the dates, they were all wrong. But I went to Montreal to where I saw that picture that then I didn't buy. That went to end up at Sotheby's at twice the price, which I then didn't buy. And I thought, well, that Forbes, maybe he got that. You've been supportive of the arts to the extent that I think everyone needs to know this. You have been bumped up a step in the Legion of Honor. Is that so?
They had the good sense to make me an officier.
Now, for those of you Americans who don't understand the importance of the Legion of Honor, you should have had Jean Mayer, my professor at Harvard, who was a member of the Legion, for having shot 2 Germans and as he got out of prison in 1945 to escape during the Nazi pullback. Professor Mayer was a pistol-toting papa, and he got a very high rank and he wore, as you're supposed to. Where's yours? You're not wearing it today. Aren't you supposed to?
It's right here. I have my little rosette. Okay. I don't leave home without it.
Put it up to the camera because Americans we don't have anything like this. There he is. This means what did they tell you that it meant? Because it's a great honor.
It is indeed. And if you restore a chateau and are generous to museums, you too can have one.
Of course. Well, I tried to explain to people that many of the noble titles of Europe were bought. Instead of the merit of the purse, let's put it that way. I have been thinking a lot about Kip Forbes the last 3 weeks, as I said, and I finally came up with my best theory. Every American likes to go to Paris. I don't care what kind of American you are, you love Paris. That's a no-brainer. But how many Americans do the French actually love? Aha! There's the book. So I'm now linking Kip Forbes to the following people, and I will explain. Benjamin Franklin is the first. The ladies of Versailles, maybe the king, maybe the queen herself, love Benjamin Franklin. Thomas Jefferson, he too was much loved by the French. See, it's not the fact that we love going to Paris that matters. It's the fact that when we get there, do they like us? And more to the point, do they love us? There was a long gap after Thomas Jefferson, leading to two quintessentially American types. Charles Lindbergh. My God, Kip, I'm linking you to Charles Lindbergh, the hero, the handsome hero of his age. And Josephine Baker.
Don't forget General Pershing.
I'm not General Pershing, exactly Lafayette. We are here. And the next one would be Eisenhower. Then, oddly enough, Jerry Lewis is much loved. I can never figure when these articles appear about Jerry Lewis. I can never quite believe that that's true, but it is true. And then Jacqueline Kennedy.
Absolutely.
And then you.
No, then Pamela Harriman, then me.
Okay, Pamela Harriman. That's a good choice. Pamela Harriman was once Winston Churchill's daughter-in-law.
She liked the French better than her former father-in-law.
Avril Harriman. I'm going to think about Pamela Harriman because the other ones have a visceral reaction. What do you think about that being the latest link in a chain that will never stop?
I love the honors I don't deserve.
Well, Lord Melbourne, who was Queen Victoria's first prime minister, said he loved the Garter most of all because there was no damn merit about it. That's not true. David McCullough wrote a book recently about 4 years ago, on Americans in Paris. And he focused on what they got. I want to focus on what the French get out of us. When you read, Kip has been the subject recently of articles in every major newspaper in Europe. He's only been pushed off the front page by the terrorists, which I think they would rather have Kip than any terrorists. His press has been as if he had little elves in the closet doing it for him. It's been magnifique, it's been splendid, there's no end to it. How does it feel to know that you are now the toast of Paris? We live in a sexual, gender-free environment. That's you, the toast of Paris.
I've been toast for years.
At this point, I want to go double back to some of our studio audience. And also, if you're listening to us in Sri Lanka or Beijing, as you do, or Spokane, Washington, as you do, tell us. We want to know where you're from. And we want you to ask Pip some questions, too. All right. So, but you do not disavow my analysis of you being part of the great chain.
No, I don't believe it, but I want to embrace it.
One of the people that loves him is the Minister of Culture, who's all you had to understand about her message was that it was in overdrive. I mean, this is a woman who has met the man of her cultural dreams.
We haven't met. We only know each other electronically.
Oh my God! Please have her take you out to lunch. With all the publicity she's deriving for herself, she at least deserves a fine dinner with the Ritz or whatever.
Forward to meeting her, and I hope I get to pay for the meal.
Well, on that, you can come here anytime you want. Did you have a chance? Let's talk about Environ. Did you have a chance to visit my red drawing room?
I have not.
Well, now, Patrice, would you mind typing on the screen? Jeffrey Lant, the red drawing room. I'm a believer in salvation, and I find things that are near death. I mean, literally.
That's why you dug me up?
Well, we're looking for a couple of connoisseurs for the Smithsonian. I mean, would you object to being stuffed? I'm willing to undertake the experiment. They might say I'm stuffed already.
Only at Thanksgiving.
Well, I want our audience to know this about you. The press that this lad has garnered in the last 3 weeks, any half intelligent person would kill to get. I had to brush up my Spanish, my Italian, my French, and my English, which I speak with some skill. And you were everywhere. Did you think that saving the emperor was going to do this for you? Was that?
I had no idea of the pulling power of Napoleon the Third.
But you know, when you think about the Second Empire, as you and I obviously do quite a lot, you think about a period of great culture. And I came up with another theory. You know, I sit here all day doing when you're 70 years old and you don't have to do anything, you dream up the damnedest things. I decided that there was a musical declension. There's a very famous song of the French, a French marching song, the Napoleon the First, which is rattlingly good. And then that's the way the Bonapartes wanted to be perceived, is this rousing march, all this brass. And then going down to Patron pour la série, which is, I'm not going to tell you, what is Patron pour la série? This is a quiz question.
It's a piece of music written by, or the words from music written by Queen Hortense, Napoleon the Third's mother. And it was the national anthem during the Second Empire. It did not survive the fall of the Second Empire.
So much didn't. What do you think about that, though? Don't you think it's a charming little squib of a thing? Did you ever actually read the words to it? I had the occasion this week to read the words.
I've even heard the music to it, but I'm not sure rousing is the word that comes to mind.
Oh, man, if you need rousing, that's no rousing tune. That's a declension from a rousing. If you want a rousing tune, I'm going to send you the link to the first French Empire marching song. And I think Napoleon the Third was a Duchess of Girondot. In other words, he wanted things that were light and fluffy, and he liked Offenbach. Do you like Offenbach?
I love Offenbach. Orpheus in the Underworld is one of my favorite operas.
If we have universal approval, maybe perhaps we'll ask you to dance a can-can. By the way, the can-can was originally written for men. Did you know that?
I didn't. I didn't know they could, let alone can-can.
It was indeed. It was originally done by men on the docks of Marseille or wherever the docks were. I'm not making this up either, people. I sit here all day looking for the most obscure facts imaginable, and that was
and we thought they were kickboxing.
I thought it came out of that. What do I want to say? La Cage aux Folles, like you find the can-can in La Cage aux Folles. I don't know. Okay, here we have some questions. Jeffrey Lant is going to, Crip, at some point or other you're going to want to visit. This is where we officially webcast from, in the Red Drawing Room. I am in the Blue Room, and there's a story in the book about you, about these columns behind me.
I'm going to look up and look at the columns. There we go. Okay.
They're very you. Did you decide? One of the things that I asked you a question about, I said, is there any silver? Did you and you don't care for silver. You don't like silver, you didn't want to go that direction, and I'm so grateful that you didn't, but why didn't you?
Probably because silver costs more than silver plate.
Well, you know that which two sovereigns produced the most silver plate for their dinners in the Tuileries?
Napoleon the Third was a great enthusiast for new material that was evolved during the Second Empire, which was aluminum, and he ordered from Christophe a huge service of aluminum, which at the time was more expensive than gold. Who'd have thought it? But anyway, it was not his wisest investment.
Louis Philippe was the other person who went for plate. So you actually find quite a lot of his stuff.
Christophe did a big business under both of them.
I wonder how that actually works. You go to the Majesty and say, I want to give you this aluminum, which is going to skyrocket in value. Do you think he bought that?
It was so difficult to make and so difficult to work, he thought it must be precious. But somebody figured out how to make more of it, much more cheaply.
I have an interesting problem that I want to bring to your attention. I purchased in New York an Aubusson carpet that, after my research, I was convinced was done for the quarters of Napoleon the Third, or for the Hotel Salm, where you were nimble and graceful there, getting it decorated. Was it the President of the Republic who decorated you, or the head of the Legion of Honor?
The Grand Chancellor of the Legion of Honor.
Who is the Grand Chancellor?
I don't know the current ones.
Well,
or I should say, not yet.
You know soon. Anyway, as you know, when the empire fell, the commune came in, which was the worst, possibly the worst devastation that ever occurred in France, at least arguably. And this particular rug, I went through the iconography on the rug, very, very detailed. And this, by the way, will give you your homework. It's only fair. I've been spending my nights with you. You'd rather spend your nights with me. In my autobiography, I take this rug and do an elaborate study of the iconography, and decided, for various reasons which I went into, that this was either done directly for the emperor or was done for the Hotel Sam, and was spared the commune. And I swear, when I was working on my research, I had to get down on my hands and knees. It's a rug that's circular, which is unusual for nobles. They're not usually circular, which indicated, so they told me it was a special commission, which I believe it was. And I got down on my hands and knees, and I smelled smoke. I swear to God that it must have been brought out of Paris inches ahead of the commune, which was burning everything. Have you any thoughts on the commune and my splendid rug, which is a rug hospital, because if you sneeze on it, it crumbles?
I think the commune did a lot of terrible things, and some governments have done fairly terrible things, but the commune was the pits.
It reminds me of terrorism, or random killing, which is a terrible thing. We're here with Christopher Kip Forbes, who is the Maecenas of his age. And now my question to you is, do you know who Maecenas was?
Well, I know who Maecenas was. Yes, he was somebody who had more money to spend than I did to indulge himself in the arts.
Well, he had talent. That's a pun for those of you who hate them. Or I should say talents, for the kind of money that he had. Anyway, I've named you for the official, whatever official society will have you. I've named you the Maecenas of your age. There's no one else that is doing, or do you disagree? Is there anyone else who is doing anything remotely like you did to take a whole era and to make it come alive?
If I'm the Maecenas of the age is very poor indeed.
Yeah, but you're a young man. You'll be around for another 40 years.
Not if my daughter has anything to say about it.
Tell us about your children and about your grandchildren. I know that they were influential. You told me, and you're deciding to sell.
I have one daughter and 3 grandchildren, and they were universal in their enthusiasm for their ability to persuade me to say au revoir to Napoleon the Third.
It's a pity, isn't it, when our heirs, because I have a lackadaisical niece and a lackadaisical nephew, who come to visit me with great lamentation, saying, "Uncle Jeffrey, he always makes me feel like it's homework. You're always teaching us something." I said, "Damn right. If you want to know what this is and how it works, you've got to know it from me." I have to say that one must be much more careful about one's parents, and much more careful indeed about one's children. I mean, we need a society where we kind of mix and match and exchange them. They wouldn't be too happy to hear that. They might be better though.
No, I'm very happy with the models I received.
Oh, because you see, yeah, he has to say that. This is the card. Say that. Do you want to talk about the arts in America for a minute? We are at a point where maybe the end has already been reached. We don't have arts in the schools. We have students who know nothing. They wouldn't know the Mona Lisa if you hit them on the head with it. Music is a dead issue. We will preserve any number of football teams, but we'll get rid of all music. We'll get rid of all elocution, all diction, all writing skills. What do you want to say about the decline of America? I'm leading you on up to this question, but it's something that I write about constantly.
How can America be declining when a prominent rapper does a song called "I Want to Be a Billionaire," and one of the lines is he wants to be on the cover of Forbes magazine along with Oprah and the Queen? We're living in a golden age.
I'm not touching that. I'm going to go back. All right. So you. Is that your secret vice? Are you a secret rapper?
I rap a lot of Christmas presents, but I wouldn't know how to sing rap if I tried.
There's always... I want to tell you about my first visit to Forbes Castle. there were some marvelous 18th century English portraits in upstairs, but there was no running water and no electricity in the castle when I went. And they had these marvelous 18th century English portraits, which you had to see them by candlelight. And I thought, well...
I'm surprised they would have indulged you in candles.
It was a very queer sensation to be in there and no water, no privies, no electricity. And I thought, what is it with these Forbes? So those are your cousins, you know. You're probably...
The ones that had castles were not closely related to my more modestly born grandfather.
But you're probably in the direct succession, although you might be 127th down to be Lord Forbes.
I think you have to add a few zeros to that.
Now, most people here who are joining us today want to know about how you started and how they can start. What they want to know is, how can I do with limited means, not slavishly copy, but start collecting. They want to know a few hints from you. What have you got to tell these folks?
If the urge is there, collecting will happen. When people say they don't have the means to collect, the gene has passed them by. Because whatever the means, there is something there that you will become addicted to collecting. Whether it's coins, stamps, matchboxes. Of course, nobody uses matches anymore. But soon it'll be used iPads and used iPhones. Whatever it is, whatever you want, it's there.
And what are a couple of tips for you when you start? One of the things that I write about is don't overbuy. Learn the value of a restraint and learn the value of the long haul. It's very
restraint, Jeffrey, restraint is grossly overrated. Don't hesitate. Go for it.
You know who that sounds like? It sounds like Malcolm Forbes. I want to tell our audience about my relationship to your father, because I lived on Holyoke Street, and I have to ask you, do you know the Cambridge geography?
I don't. I don't. Okay. Not a campus I spend much time on.
Holyoke Street is right off of Forbes Plaza, Governor Forbes. And I lived in Franklin D. Roosevelt's valet's rooms, and marvelous rooms the valet had, much less Franklin himself. And at the end of the street, your father would gather with his motorcycle friends, and I think it would astonish, must be the right word, astonish the neighborhood. I mean, and he would gather in front of the Lampoon. Have you ever been into the Lampoon?
I have. My father was on the cover of the Lampoon and enjoyed it thoroughly.
Quite right. Your father had a zest for living that may be unequal. You ever comment on that? Because I used to be able to see the goings on at the end of the street from where I lived. And there would always be, 50 or so in full, robust outfitting, and they're at the end of the street. And your father was the leader of the pack. And I always wondered, I said, I'd love to ask him, did you, because I know you didn't like it very much. You didn't go on the transcontinental motorcycle outing.
No, I learned the errors of my ways very early on, and realized that no, motorcycles and I were not going to have a long career together.
Well, that is another thing in which we are.
The first time I rode something bigger than a 250 and realized I couldn't pick it up, and that was what was going to be sliding on top of me. I made a mistake. I thought, no.
Well, good. I'm glad you came up. But what did you think of having your father zooming around the neighborhood in his leather gear? Dazzling. I mean, Harvard students are, first of all, they're blasé. We are probably more blasé than you. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know,
Princeton students maintain their naive enthusiasm.
Well, the only good thing about Princeton that I can think of is that scene from the film Wilson by Daryl Zanuck, in which Woodrow Wilson comes out to the veranda of the president's house and has the boys serenading. That was touching. The rest of it, I don't know. Although I have to tell you that my money from graduate school came from the Woodrow Wilson Foundation and passed through Princeton University. So I should be more grateful than I am. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. In any event, Kip went to Princeton, which is the elegant Ivy League school. And would you care to say, Harvard students dress like slobs and hobos. And you could always tell the richest Harvard student because they looked the worst. No one dresses here in anything other than rags. Everyone would know you were a foreigner if you came as elegant a costume as you are today. Is Princeton, did you learn your sense of decorum at Princeton? Where did it come from?
I have to give both of my parents credit for that. Princeton merely polished it off.
When he was an undergraduate, Kip won a major book prize. Did cash come with it or just merit?
Thank goodness the cash came. It always came in handy.
Damn the merit. Let's have the cash. And by the way, Kip, can I brag to you? My autobiography, as you know, came out a few months ago, and yesterday was awarded its 8th literary prize. It has now garnered 8 literary prizes. It is going to be the classic of our age. No one will read it, but it will be classic. Isn't that nice? We can satisfy my need for recognition and everybody else's need not to read a difficult, long book. I feel like James Joyce.
Well, we can all rejoice in it.
Now, we did give you a copy of the book, finally, didn't we?
You have tried electronically. I'm afraid I'm waiting for a hard copy.
We're going to wait a long time. We better have
exactly right.
That book in hard copy would. I can't even think of it. Anyway, this is my problem. You see, discerning folks like you. But if you wish to reward me an award of merit, that'll be okay. Any of you who haven't read my book yet, awards of merit with cash are the preferred way of dealing with your guilt and shame. I had a French story which I wish to tell you, and then I'm going to talk about your relationship with France, because obviously it goes deep, as it does with all true people that are loved by the French. Do you get that sense, by the way, that the French love you? They do. They do.
The French love no one, but I'm grateful that they tolerate me.
They tolerate you to the nth degree. Anyway, I read it as I was writing my autobiography. I read a story in the paper about an incident that took place at the Louvre. One day, a group of Dutch tourists were having picnicking on the Louvre grass, which is, of course, not anywhere near as lush as it should be. Another problem with France. And a rat jumped out from nowhere and grabbed the woman's ham sandwich and dragged it into its lair. And the woman screamed and screamed and screamed for help, and her plea for help made it all the way to Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I decided to launch a party called Rats' Rights. Now, I take this leaf out of your book because the Forbeses, everyone, are geniuses when it comes to publicity. I don't know of a family going that is as good as they are. They could transfer the spilling of a can of paint into an international incident to the front page of every newspaper. Anyway,
I think your charges are trumped up.
Oh, God. All right, we're going to have to ask you whether you know the Donald. He is the news. But first, I'll tell you about my Rats' Rights party. I made up a survey that out of 100% of French people asked about what to do about the rats, 97% said exterminate them, but 3% said give them rats' rights. So we launched a political party called Rats' Rights, which is in my autobiography. And because it's so cleverly written, although you'll never know it, because it's so cleverly written, no one actually knows whether it's true or not true. And people say to me, is it true? I'm not. No good author, you know that, is going to actually answer that question. Is it true?
Your answer is
true.
Your answer is right on.
Right on indeed. Now, tell us, the Donald. Any comments?
He is a brilliant businessman who's made a fortune not once but twice, and he has confounded the political establishment and makes the American political process one of the most fascinating and interesting in the world. And the founding fathers knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it right.
You know, I want to talk about you. Your family has been, especially your father, has been famous for collecting the pivotal core documents of America. What are some of the documents that have passed through your hands over the years, your father's hands, that you were exhibited at the Ford building?
One of the most fascinating was the letter from Einstein to President Roosevelt explaining the capabilities of the atomic bomb. But another almost atomic letter was the one that Harry Truman wrote to a music critic who had the nerve to say that his daughter Margaret wasn't a brilliant pianist.
So he was going to punch him where you're going to need a supporter. You will know the rest of that letter.
Exactly.
You need a beefsteak for your eyes and a supporter for down below.
Right.
I admired Truman for that outburst.
Absolutely. He was a doting father.
Well, unfortunately, his mother-in-law hated him, as you know. Here he was, the President of the United States, and he still wasn't good enough for Margaret. I found that touching. And being a Midwesterner as I am, I could just hear the old lady saying it. The range of the Ford family has been very broad in collecting. I don't know whether you were involved. Your brother Steve's collection of Churchilliana, was that you or just was that him?
No, that was purely Steve. He had as much to do with my Napoleon the Third collection as I did with his Churchill collection, the occasional Christmas present.
No. Okay, we all need. Have you suffered from seller's remorse yet? The selling of your collection?
No, I'm hoping I will be as happy at the end of sale 3 as I was at the end of sale 2.
Luckily for me, I had the good fortune that the Austinite catalog went up moments before this program. Coming up on April the 9th in Fontainebleau. Osenat is the name of the company, O-S-E-N-A-T. First of all, we encourage you to go there. It's a very interesting company. It's organized around what I might call collegiate lines. And there we go. Sometimes my screen just goes black.
My mind does that often.
Osenat is just outside Paris in Fontainebleau, and you are the prevailing beau ideal of the whole establishment. How did you make your connection with Odendahl? Because I'm suspecting that because they sell so many documents, that you were a patient. You were a patient of theirs long before this. In other words, you had been doing a lot. Because it's the only place, to my knowledge, that you can get an organized block of autographed letters on almost any subject dealing with the empire. Is that true? I mean, in other words,
Maecenas has been very good at organizing sales devoted to the First Empire, and happily for me, they've succeeded doing the same for the Second Empire. But I was a buyer there over many years and was happy to return as a seller.
How did you store these documents? I'm not going to talk to you as a historian, because the storage of documents is arguably as important as the document itself. We don't store it properly. Did you have some kind of special place for them, special folders? You had so many. How did you manage to store them and organize them?
Put them in mylar and in archival fireproof file cabinets. Ideally, you control the climate, but in New Jersey, the climate's hard to control, but you do the best you can.
I think in Massachusetts. Do you think that people like us will exist 100 years from now? Or do you think we will have become...
Well, if medicine does what it's supposed to, you and I will be here 100 years from now.
Well, if they do, I want to at least keep half of my teeth and half of my hair.
Which half?
Whichever half the medical establishment deigns. I have something funny to tell you. You'll laugh about it. I'm a very fast producer of prose, and my neurologist is doing a study of my brain. She wants to see if the configuration of the brain has anything to do with creativity. Boy, wouldn't that be? We'll have you selling at Forbes magazine here, take these 2 pills, and your productivity will go up by 80%.
Be a no-brainer.
It would indeed be a no-brainer. We are here with Kip Forbes. We're coming into the last part of our program for today. We're so pleased that you joined us. And your nervousness went right away. You see, you started talking, and you're looking calm as ever.
It's all an illusion.
What do you think about this new technology where you can sit in your office? Where are you, by the way? Are you in New York today, or are you in...
I'm in Jersey City at 499 Washington Boulevard.
And here you are addressing the world, and they're getting a very clear sense. The pictures are great. The commentary is great. You haven't gone around a couple of questions. You're very good at saying what you want the auditor to know and nothing else. Good, long time tradition. Any questions from anyone in the room and those coming in? We're glad. I want to particularly introduce tip to some of our members here who are here. Chris McNamara, who helps me with computer questions. He is a whiz. Lisa Martinook from the west of Canada is a doll. You would love it. She is one of our biggest supporters. Mary Birch, who is one of our docents. And by the way, I don't think you know this, but we have docents that will be launched on the 29th when our official opening starts into our next phase of our development. Reverend Annette Lacey out on the West Coast with Ron James in Ohio, I think. Wallace Johnson was in the Apollo program, so Wallace, say hello. He himself is writing a biography at the moment, autobiography, and he knew all the astronauts, and we say that Wallace Johnson flies higher than all of us. What do you want to ask me, if anything? I should turn the table and make you the interview.
How much have you salted away to spend in Sail 3?
Enough, and now that I know how it works. See, it wasn't exactly that took me for granted, but you know, these celebrity sales do make people go crazy. They absolutely make you go nuts, because everybody is flourishing cash, and my forte has been to find things that are undervalued, that are hidden away under the lotus patch. And I've been very, very fortunate about that. Plus, do you have a team, like I have, of experts? I have my picture expert, Simon Gillespie in London, who is a dream. I've worked with him for the last 35 pictures, including one which hangs in my bedroom, which once was owned by you, Manlius and the Tarpeian Rock. And then we have Roddy McVitie in Kent, who handles all the artifacts, and he's a pip of a person. And we have Andy on the Isle of Wight, who handles my silver. I have a team collected. Did you work that way? To get?
No, I'm an auctioneer's dream. I'm the idiot who takes their word for it.
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but I cannot go that route. How I do it, and I'd love to hear how you do it, is I ask for a condition report, and Austinite is very bad about that. To get a condition report there is like, well, it's probably as difficult as getting the Legion of Honor. Probably. But you get a condition report, and then it starts the back and forth thing between your expert, their people, and plus what I find on the internet and whatever. I go through a very elaborate process with everything. That's because people that have a limited means, and your means are limited. There isn't anyone in the world that doesn't have limited. The limitations are broader. I can't make a mistake because that would, well, it'd be too expensive.
We all make mistakes. I mean, to err is human, and great museums have made mistakes. So why shouldn't we?
Or as Mrs. Robert A. Taft said, to err is Truman.
Ooh.
Let's talk about you in the Metropolitan Museum of Arts. You told me a story which I found absolutely fascinating about when we met, which was 31 years ago, something like that, in Boston. You had told me a story that when you were an undergraduate at Princeton, and you went to talk to your father about your senior thesis because you were doing an honors thesis, right?
No, you had to do a thesis, not whether you wanted honors or not. That was it still is a requirement at Princeton. Now, I earlier conned my father into letting me put together for him a big collection of Victorian paintings, and then I conned the art department in letting me write a catalog rather than writing a thesis. And then both Princeton and my father thought I was very bright when the Metropolitan Museum asked if they could have the exhibition first. So I don't know if anybody read the thesis, but it ended up.
What were you? Were you 22 years old at the time? 23 years old?
It started when I was 17. So.
Well, how old were you when your actual exhibit at the Metropolitan took place?
I was 22 when the show finally took place at the Met.
That's what I guessed. All right, so that's okay. So nobody younger than you had ever done this.
I'm sure there were plenty younger, but nobody was foolish enough to do it with Victorian paintings.
you collected mostly pre-Raphaelites, yes?
Raphaelites and the aesthetic movement and good hardcore Victorian painters like Sir Edwin Landseer.
And you got deals
or
on
William Powell Frith.
Because you were in there before the roof went up for pre-Raphaelites.
Wonderful time. You could buy by the mile and save on every yard.
To our members of our audience, what he's telling you is something very important. Know the trend before it occurs, and you beat the trend in the.
I didn't realize it was going to become a trend, but it was. I liked pictures where I didn't need a psychoanalyst to tell me why I should like it.
Okay, and you bought a house. Was the house purchased for the storage of the pictures? Because you didn't ever live there.
No, it was a happy confluence of events. We were buying British pictures about the time my father ended up acquiring the use of a house in London, and although it was a 17th century house, the 19th century paintings looked fabulous in it, and lived there happily for 40-something years.
And then you decided to disperse. What causes you to disperse after a time you've had them for each other? You want to go back onto something new. What's the motive principle between dispersal?
A variety of things. I mean, the Victorian paintings were a fun project, but it was a project. It was done for my father, and after he died, none of my siblings shared the enthusiasm, so we decided, well, let's see whether Kippy was a fool or not. And happily, the ROI on Victorian paintings was almost as good as the ROI on Fabergé eggs.
Well, I've got to say something to you. When Kippy starts talking about being shy and retiring, forget it. Watch your wallet, boys. That's the sure sign that some deal is going to go down. You are a champion deal maker. Was your experience with the art market helpful in that regard?
I don't know if I really made any deals, but once in a while one was dumb and lucky and bought some good things that appreciated.
Now, see, that's the comment you got to watch. Now, hold on. Everybody check your wallets right now and make sure they're still where they were a minute ago.
Ah, shucks.
We'd love to keep you for longer, another 10 minutes, or do you might have to run, or do you have 10 more minutes for us to wrap up?
I will run on at the mouth as long as you like.
Oh, good. Here's a comment from Wallace Johnson. Wallace Johnson is, so that you know this, he's in his 90s. He's as spry as a fiddle. He says, do you anticipate the possibilities of the world reserve banking requirements going to another currency, and how will it affect your art collection? I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe you do.
I think the dollar is going to be around for a long time to come. I don't anticipate it affecting the value of what art I have left, but hopefully it won't increase the cost of my grandchildren's tuitions, because that's the only thing I'm collecting these days.
Lucky they are to have you. Now, you have a lot of collectors in the family, and you'd like to mention some of them because they're either tuning in now, or you'll coerce them next Sunday after Sunday dinner to watch you on your program. We know that happens. We all love sitting around the living room watching ourselves on these programs. It's great for your ego. Tell us about the collectors in the next generation of Forbeses.
I don't know about the next generation, because my daughter is not a collector. She, like my wife, was patient with mine, but they are now happier than they were. And I don't know about my nieces and nephews, but all my siblings and I inherited our father's disease to one degree or another.
What do you think about this as a way to get art information out? I am one of the people who is opposed to, well, recently in Boston we had a program of Goyas, most of which came from Madrid. And everybody was oohing and eyeing what a great coup it was. And I was the sour voice saying, get your mitts off those Goyas. They're fragile as all get out. Have we, I hope, begun to move out of the age of these mega programs where the pictures undergo such a lot of stress? I don't care what they say. Those pictures undergo a great deal of stress. I advocate doing it by video, like this. Programs of this kind, and video booths. Rather like you're a public...
Getting the word out there is great, but seeing the original is also a unique and wonderful experience. You just described Forbes Castle, where these pictures cope with no heat in the winter and whatever the weather is in the summer and a lot of humidity, and they survive. A little traveling doesn't hurt things.
A little traveling, but again, it's a question of you have. One of the things that upsets me when I go to the Louvre or Versailles, for example, is the state of the dust factor and the fact that the frames are cracking. Does this bother you?
No, because my frame's beginning to crack too. So you just cope.
Anybody? Does it bother anybody? Am I alone in this fixation of mine about dust? I mean, Harvard men do tend to produce. We have our fixations. Before we go on to the next, I want everybody to participate. If anything, make some predictions for us about you, about art, about your collecting, and about the state of the world. You were very soft on Donald Trump. I know that your brother ran for president. We should remind this. What was your role when your brother ran for president?
Being as low-key, as invisible as possible. Siblings can only embarrass candidates.
Well, that's true. Look at the Carters, for example. They had Billy Beer. That was and Richard Nixon had his problems as well.
President Clinton had a brother he didn't even know. So I mean, the siblings are should be very invisible.
I want you to know that I'm publishing my letter over the course of the last 7 years. I've written a number of letters to the president, none of which have ever been acknowledged. I wrote them in the form of articles, which were printed. And now I'm going to bring them out as a special edition, Letters to My President, in which I come across as looking incredibly smart, predicting all these things. If you want to gauge...
I never doubted it.
What is it like to be surrounded by the best examples of the past?
It makes being in the present a joy.
Your latest foray into literature has been your preface to your catalogs. Wonderfully written, very light, very intelligent, just what we'd expect. What's coming down the path for you? Are you going to start another fixation, or are you going to take a breather?
I'm going to just try to keep breathing, period.
You strike everyone as decent, calm, well-balanced, and, fun on a date. That's a 40s expression, but that's what. I like the way...
It's amazing that one can create such an illusion.
Well, we want to thank you.
You should all be so lucky to be able to spend this much time with Dr. Lant.
Sure that we have on record an official invitation from me for you to come to Cambridge, where we are going to serve you on what I'm calling the lipstick service. To the people in the audience, I don't collect china because my ruffian friends break it. I mean, I must know any number of bulls in china shops who come in, and so I only eat off of silver because they can only dent it, they can't break it. Anyway, I broke my rule because of Kip. I saw this 55 pieces of Sev with a color that was what I call the lipstick service. It was like a 30s lipstick commercial with these bright, flamingly bright red lips. And I got it, and people said, "Are you going to use it?" I said, "Are you kidding? I'm going to wait for Kip Forbes to come, and he's going to have lunch with me. It's so gaudy. It will be the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine. It's absolutely lovely. Everyone who sees it loves it. And I want to thank you for collecting it for me over so many years."
Waiting for it to find the right home.
And it did, as we all do, and we want to thank him. We see him on the pages of his Forbes magazine, and I predict that after today he'll be mulling over. I believe he's got his eye probably on something right this minute. He's going to test our theory. He's going to commit